The RAISE strategy is a tool that we can use when working on a constructive response. It is a framework that will help us incorporate text evidence, that's information from whatever we've read, that's going to help us prove and support how we concluded that what we have written as the answer is truly the answer. So it is a strategy that we can incorporate to any of our writing to help us organize it and make sure that all of the required components are present. So what our goal is in this recording is to make sure that we are comfortable with what those required components would be and exactly what the RAISE strategy would look like when we utilize it in our writing. So to start with, we want to make sure that we know what the RAISE strategy is. The RAISE strategy for a constructive response follows 3 simple steps. Step 1, in one sentence, we want to restate and answer the question. So if the question we're looking at for our constructive response is, what is the cause of World War II? We would want to begin by answering the question, the cause of World War II is, and then provide the answer based on the evidence that we have found in what we have read. So step 1, we are simply in one sentence restating the question that's been given to us and providing the answer to that question. In step 2, we're going to provide a piece of evidence from the text that we've read that shows and proves that our answer is correct. So we're going to incorporate that through the use of a signal phrase that we'll talk about in just a second, but we want to include that text evidence. Finally, it's not enough for us just to include that evidence. We want to also explain, that's our last step, explain how that evidence supports your answer. So when we think about the acronym RACE, step 1 is when we restate an answer, that's our RA step. Step 2 is when we cite the evidence, that's our C. And step 3 is when we explain that evidence. And if you'll notice that on your screen, the information, the steps there are all color-coded and they correspond with the way that we would see the colors on a traffic light. The very top of our response, we like to color code red because we know that always comes first and that should be our initial statement. Following that, we'll have our citation in yellow and then our explanation, which follows the citation in green. So our RACE response, if we color-coded it, would follow a red, yellow, green format, just like that traffic light. All right, so when we break down those steps just in a little more detail, when we look at the key components that need to be present in each step, step 1, we want to always remember that one of the easiest ways for us to get started is simply just to remove that question term. In the example we talked about just a second ago, what are the causes of World War II? When we look at that and we look at the question word is the word what. So instead of phrasing it, what are the causes of World War II, we would begin restating it by simply saying the causes of World War II are. If we had a question that asks, how are events in 2 wars connected, or how are they similar? Instead of starting with the word how, we would remove that question word. We would say the events in these 2 wars are similar in that they, and then we would provide our answer. So we're just going to remove the question term, and then we want to specifically answer the question, provide our answer in one complete, concise sentence. And we're going to shade that or color code it red to ensure that that occurs at the very beginning of our response, the very top, like the red portion of the traffic light. Secondly, we want to, we need to cite evidence from the text that supports that answer or proves that the answer that we've included is correct. We want to make sure that that particular piece, that yellow portion of our traffic light includes a direct quote, something that came specifically from the text, and also that it includes a signal phrase. A signal phrase is simply a few words that indicate that what's following that signal phrase are someone else's words. A signal phrase can be as simple as according to the text, the author states, the passage tells us, But you want a few words or phrases that indicate that what's following that are coming from the text itself, that they're not your own words. And because this is following the answer, it's second in our process, then we would shade that particular piece of the response yellow to let us know that we have that citation present. All right, our third step is anytime we have a yellow step, or we have that step 2 where we've cited information, we want to always come back with step 3, the E step, the green step. We want to explain how that evidence supports the answer. We want to make sure we are elaborating on what that piece of evidence helps us understand or helps us know. So it should immediately follow the citation. And a couple of phrases that can help us get started with this step is simply tell us, this tells us, this helps us explain, this evidence helps us understand. And then in your own words, elaborate a little bit on that citation so that whoever's reading your response knows that you understand it, and they also can see the connection that you've made. Because this is the last step in the response and it's at the very bottom, it would be shaded green, just like the very bottom of the traffic light. Now, it is important to note that sometimes your response requires more than one piece of text evidence, and in that case, you would simply repeat the C and the E, or steps 2 and steps 3, as many times as necessary until you have thoroughly answered the question. So let's look at what this would look like in a real situation. So again, we're going to look at a race strategy to create a constructed response. In step 1, we're going to restate and answer the question. In step 2, we're going to cite evidence from the text. In step 3, we're going to explain how that evidence supports your answer. So if we look at the question here at the bottom, the question says, describe one of the benefits of physical activity using information from the passage. So if we were given this particular question, we're going to go through the process of what we would do to create a race response that would respond and answer this question. So the first thing we would have to do is look at the passage. This is an excerpt from a passage that we have looked at in the past called Just Get Moving. And we're going to look specifically at the paragraph that's in the center of the screen. It says, being overweight just doesn't affect how you look. It affects your health too. Exercise, even a little bit of exercise, will help you use up some calories that might otherwise stay with you as extra fat that you don't need. If you get moderate exercise regularly, your body will burn the calories and keep you at a healthy weight. Being active regularly can also put you in a better mood when you're feeling down and keep anxiety away. So if we consider that particular paragraph from the passage, and then we go back to our question, which was describe one of the benefits of physical activity using information from the passage, one of the things that we can conclude is that that regular physical activity can help us maintain a healthy weight. So that would provide one benefit of physical activity, which is what the question asked. So if we're working through the race strategy, step 1 would be to restate and answer the question. So if we take the question, it tells us describe one of the benefits of physical activity. Using information from the passage, we're going to remove the question words or in the directions, and we're going to simply state restate the question. One of the benefits of physical activity is, and then we have directly answered the question, to help maintain a healthy weight. So this is our R and our A step in step 1. So our next step in step 2 would be to cite evidence from the text. So we're going to pull something directly from what we've read, and we're going to put it into quotation marks, add a signal phrase, and we're going to show how we reach the conclusion that one of the benefits of physical activity is maintaining that healthy weight. So what we've pulled from that passage is, according to the text, that circle there is our signal phrase. Exercise will help you use up some calories that might otherwise stay with you as extra fat that you don't need. All right, so that particular sentence is our step 2, our C step, where we have cited evidence from the text and incorporated the signal phrase and direct quote. So our final step then would be to step 3, our E step. Explain how that evidence supports our answer. What does that quotation help us understand, and how did that help us reach the conclusion that we stated in our RA step in our answer? All right, so what we've included here says by burning calories during exercise, you can avoid gaining extra weight and maintain a healthy lifestyle. So this was a little bit of interpretation of what we felt that direct quote meant and why it helped us conclude that physical activity can help maintain a healthy weight. So when we pull that all together, we have our complete response, RACE. RA is in the red section because we're color coding it again like a traffic light. The C is in the yellow section, and notice it has the signal phrase circled. And then our E step is in the green section, where we have explained and elaborated on that text evidence and shown how that evidence helped us reach the conclusion that we did in the answer. Now, we want to make a note that steps C and E may need to be repeated for a complete response. Sometimes questions do indicate that you need multiple pieces of information. If that was the case, you simply would add a transitional word, another detail from the text, and then repeat that C and E step as many times as necessary to thoroughly complete the answer. So hopefully the RACE response will be beneficial to you as you work on creating a constructed response. We hope that if you have any questions that you'll reach out to your instructor so we can support you as you use the RACE strategy in your writing.